I'm Tracie Guy Decker, and you're listening to Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit. Because pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head? Today, I will be sharing my deep thoughts about Muppets from Space with my sister, Emily Guy Birkin, and with you. So let's dive in. Have you ever had something you love dismissed because it's just pop culture? What others might deem stupid shit, you know matters. You know it's worth talking and thinking about. And so do we. Come overthink with us as we delve into our deep thoughts about stupid shit. And what do you remember about Muppets from Space?
So I know that you introduced me to Muppets from Space. I can remember you had it on DVD. I feel like it's when you were still living in Chicago. But I don't know for sure. I remember immediately falling in love with Pepe the King Prawn.
Yeah.
Well done, new Muppet character. Well done. I cannot remember if you told me you would smack me like a bad donkey before or after I had seen it. And I remember that being like kind of surprised that it's not better known. Like people don't really talk about it in terms of like the Muppet canon. So, I mean, obviously this is a Muppet movie after Jim Henson passed away, but he passed away in like the late 80s or early 90s.
Early 90s, yeah.
And this is from 1999.
That's right, yeah.
And people do talk about Muppet Christmas Carol because I see every Christmas people will talk about it. And I wonder if it's because it's not a seasonal movie, but it is an underrated gem.
For reals. And
something I've been trying to get my kids to appreciate as much as I do. It's not a tradition yet, but I'm trying to make it a tradition that we watch it on Christmas Day each year. So that's what I remember about this movie. So tell me, why are we talking about it today?
Yeah. So you remember a lot of the great things. We are talking about this movie because in addition to it being a really deeply underrated movie, when my daughter was really little, this movie was on repeat, like constantly. Like she saw it, I don't know, 100 times before she was 4. As you and I have been thinking about this project and just grappling with the ways in which pop culture informs and shapes who we are, really thinking about that and my kid and the things that I choose to share with her and choose not to. And so I've been thinking a little bit about like what maybe slipped through because I was like, oh, it's the Muppets. It's okay. You know? So that's kind of what's like at stake for me, is that I'm like, this was one that was a little unexamined because it was just so much fun. So I wanted to maybe take some time and examine it. Yeah. So I'm going to catch our listeners up if you haven't seen it or if you haven't seen it recently. Based on like one line in like an old Muppet movie about Gonzo potentially being from space, this whole movie, this spins out the idea that Gonzo is in fact an alien and his alien brethren are trying to reach him, and he they make contact with him through, of course, ridiculous means like his Captain Alphabet cereal, which is like Captain Crunch but shaped like letters, and it spells out things for him, and then he gets struck by lightning, I'm putting quotes around that, and like has this vision where he meets cosmic space fish who are highly evolved beings and speak with Indian English accents. I don't know. And they let him know that his people are trying to contact him, and anyway,
about his extended warranty.
Right, about Geico. So he ends up getting kidnapped by a government agency that's in charge of trying to assess the threat of alien attack, and then the Muppets rescue him, the other Muppets rescue him, and they end up going to the beach where they meet his family, who are all like Gonzo with the nose, and they like the same kind of music, and they like shooting people out of cannons. And so like all of a sudden, all of his quirks make sense. So that's like the nutshell of what happens in Muppets from Space. And some of the reasons that I love it are that, you know, it's a movie that really addresses the idea of chosen family, which I'm just a sucker for stories about chosen family.
Chosen family stories. Yeah.
I think it just like strikes a particular nerve that I just love chosen family stories. But it also talks about sort of belonging. And there is something about like where Gonzo's quirks come from. The Muppets are special to me, to us. Like, I don't know, you know, I'm talking about this today because of my kid and having watched this with her when she was tiny. I don't know if you know this story, but when Dad was alive, he would tell the story of like before you were born. So I'm like teeny tiny, like maybe 2. So like Mom and Dad are still together, and Dad says like he was watching the Muppet Show, which was primetime TV. In the late 70s, which boggles my mind.
Well, it wasn't exactly for kids.
It's true. It wasn't. It's true. So Dad's watching watching the Muppet Show, and I like crawled over and sat on his lap and just watched with him as a toddler, with a trained attention that he hadn't seen on other things, and so it was sort of like a special memory for him as well. So the Muppets are special in many, many ways. And so that this idea of like both knowing where one comes from, but also sort of choosing the chosen family, it warms the cockles of my heart. You know?
Whatever those are.
Whatever they are, they're warm because of Muppets. And then in rewatching it and thinking about like what is getting into my kid's head when she's teeny tiny, there's some stuff in there that's not so great. Like in our last episode talking about Twilight, we brought up the Bechdel test. Alison Bechdel's sort of, are there at least 2 female characters? Do they both have names? Do they talk to one another about something other than a boy or a man? And this passes, but just barely, right? There's Miss Piggy and there's Shelley Snipes, who is the actual human, not Muppet, like journalist who Miss Piggy tries to, or does take her job. They talk to one another, but it's an argument because Piggy has stolen Shelley's job. And so they fight. They actually come to fisticuffs. Shelley wins, but Piggy uses the Muppet Labs mist that makes the person who receives it do whatever Miss Piggy says. And then she says, I love this stuff. So the gender stuff, there's very little, there just is very little representation in this movie. The one other female character doesn't have a name. It's Kathy Griffith's security guard from inside the government facility, who Animal effectively sexually assaults. But then she ends up like liking it and becoming like one of those like clingy girlfriends, which is like, gross. I have one word for it. Ew. Ew.
It's the revenge of the nerds trope, you know, in that, like, you know, all they need is to see how good at sex this unattractive person is, and then they'll fall in love with them.
Kind of. It's kind of that. It's all, I mean, this is even slightly grosser because Animal's invisible when it starts. Like, he has the invisibility spray on.
I had forgotten about
that. So at first, like, Kathy Griffin is acting against nothing, just like sort of like jumping around as if he's like tweaking her tush or something. And then they disappear for most of the movie and then come back, and she's like chasing him like, no, I need you.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
yes, Revenge of the Nerds, and also like almost worse. I
mhm.
mean, not because we don't actually see any, like, in Revenge of the Nerds, it's clear they actually have intercourse, which is straight up
It's
rape, I
yeah,
think,
well, yeah,
because
rape by fraud, or I think they call it, or
yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
yeah. And this is the Muppets, so that's not
yeah,
implied.
yeah.
It's certainly not on screen, and it's not even implied. I
Mhm,
mean, the
mhm,
implication that I got is that there was some kissing that
mhm,
happened, but still, it's yucky. He was invisible when
mhm,
it started. She was clearly not consenting, at least
mhm,
from
mhm,
what we saw on screen. So that's gross.
mhm,
That's gross. And the other thing that, like, the negative thing that I'm left with as I'm rewatching this and thinking about what have I put into my kid's head is that as much as I love chosen family stories, there's something that's like not quite right about Gonzo's chosen
mhm,
family,
mhm,
right? Like, especially, I mean, I love dramatic irony. You and I talked about
mhm,
that in Lightbringers about how much I love dramatic irony. And there's a bit of dramatic irony in in the way that Snuffleupagus was dramatic irony. Like,
mhm,
we and Gonzo know the truth, but the other
mhm,
Muppets don't.
mhm,
And they're convinced he's just crazy,
mhm,
right? When he
mhm,
tells the story about the cosmic fish, which we just saw, they had Indian accents, they were
mhm,
real.
mhm,
But they don't believe him. They think, in fact, they make jokes about, um, at one point, Kermit says, what's he doing up there? And Rizzo says his cereal told him to
mhm,
watch the stars. And one of the other Muppets says, talk about whole grain and nuts,
mhm,
which is a funny little pun. But they make jokes like that about how he's crazy the
mhm,
whole
mhm.
movie, even after they've rescued him from the
From the
government
government lab. Yeah.
lab where they were going to kill him and dissect him as an alien. They're still like, he says, we got to go now, we can go to the beach and meet my family. And they're like, don't you think you've taken this a little too far? And he's like, what? You still don't believe me? And Gonzo, I mean, to Gonzo's credit, Gonzo's like, stop the bus. I'll go on my own. I'll find
Mhm,
my own way.
mhm,
And Kermit says, it doesn't matter what we believe. If you believe you have to go meet your alien brethren at Cape Doom, then I say we're going to the beach. And all the other Muppets chime in, like, to the beach. And
mhm.
great music plays and whatever. It's fun. But on this rewatch, this like 100 something rewatch, I'm like, wow, Gonzo deserves better.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, he deserves better than like, I mean, I guess we'll go if you want to go.
You talking about that brings up so the villain, if there's a villain, is the human government agent, because there's a human
Yeah,
government
Jeffrey
agent, and then yes, Jeff
the
Tambor,
bear,
yeah,
Jeffrey
and
Tambor.
then
Yeah,
his bear assistant.
yeah.
One of the
K.
things I
Edward
love.
Singer. Ed is the Jeffrey Tambor's name.
Oh, okay,
Character
okay.
Ed.
Um, yeah, one of the things I appreciate about oh, I just realized it's J. Edgar Hoover, J. Edward Singer,
It's
Singer
K. Edward
sewing machine.
K. Edward
Okay,
Singer. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
so Singer sewing machine.
Yeah.
uh, only seen this movie like 10 times. Anyway, at the end, he like um is freaking out, saying like, "Don't laugh at me."
Mhm.
And he is single-minded in what he's doing because people laugh at him,
Mhm.
and he becomes like he is threatening violence at the end because people are laughing at him. And like his "don't laugh at me" is like both hysterical in terms of like he sounds hysterical, like he's unhinged, but also like a bit threatening,
Mhm.
more than a bit. um that, again, Muppet movie. And the bear, the reason why he couldn't use the bear took the batteries out of the gun.
The cartridge, yeah.
The cartridge.
So, well, it's the ammunition. Please load weapon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but I'm just thinking he occupies a similar space that Gonzo does.
Completely. Which, yes, completely. The movie makers acknowledge that, actually, because there's a scene, the first time he freaks out because he thinks they're laughing at him. They're not laughing at him. He says, "No nostrils, how do you smell?" And Rizzo says, "Terrible, believe me, I'm his roommate." And then everybody laughs. And he says, "That don't laugh at me." And and then he like calms himself down and he says, "I'm sorry, but do you know what it's like to be laughed at?" And Gonzo's like, "Yeah, sure.
Absolutely."
Says, to be, right. And he says, or to be called names like freak boy or weirdo. And Gonzo's like, "Yep." And then he says, or paranoid, delusional, psychopath. And Gonzo's like, got me there.
I had forgotten that. Yeah.
So the movie makers actually very clearly say, like, this guy's like Gonzo, he's a weirdo, but he takes it too far because it gets violent.
But it's no, like it's hard to compare because Jeffrey Tambor's character is at work and his boss is saying like, we can't waste resources on this. But there's also like, there's the sense of like, well, what is the real difference between Gonzo and Tambor in that, like, I mean, Gonzo does have supportive, quote unquote, found family, because they do love him and they do want to help him out. But they, you know, they call him crazy, they manipulate him, they, you know, all of those things. And Tambor, like the most supportive person in his life is the bear.
Banjo. Yeah. Who's actually very supportive.
Very
baby steps, sir. Baby steps. Oh, here's your platinum buns workout tape.
Yeah. So, and that's, so it's just, it's interesting to like, what is it, what is the story trying to tell? And not to overthink it too much, but, something that I think is interesting is like, what role do we play in people who are outcasts in our society? And there has been, over the past 24 years since the movie came out, there has been a rise in particularly disaffected young white men who feel like outcasts and turn to violence. And on the, you know, when you're talking about folks who call themselves incels, you know, no, it is not our responsibility to make them feel comfortable. It is not our responsibility to make them feel like they don't need to be laughed at. But then on the other side of it, like what you're talking about just within the film, like how do we support, how do we show up for the people that we love in a way that is not alienating?
Right. Pun intended.
Thank you for noticing that, because I did not realize.
So there's an interesting tidbit that I'm going to throw in here to kind of problematize the questions that you're asking. So as I was thinking about this movie and I was reading up on it, and one of the writers of the screenplay, it went through several revisions, and an earlier version was all parody, Men in Black and like whatever. And Independence Day actually is in there, which I didn't realize because I saw this movie first.
I actually, I just so the audience knows, this year, like in the past few months, Tracie said to me, like, I just got that Release Me thing because I just saw Independence Day. I was like, what?
Yeah. That's the Muppet like doctor gets thrown against the glass and goes, "Release me."
Yeah, and that was Brent Spiner, Data.
Right. The alien in him. And I didn't get it. I didn't know what that was about. Anyway. So there were even more parodies in an earlier version of the script. And in an earlier version of the script, the ending, the aliens had been watching old Muppet Show transmissions. And so they styled themselves after Gonzo because they thought he was like whatever the pinnacle. But it turned
Mhm.
out like when they removed their Gonzo masks, they were like hideous creatures. They were not
They were not his
cool.
brethren.
They were not, in fact, his brethren. And the movie maker or the script writer who wrote that ending really dislikes the ending that we got because he's
Mm.
like, they're not his family. The Muppets are his family. Obviously, I'm adding tone. I just read this. I didn't actually
Yeah.
hear him
Yeah.
talk about it. But I think there's something really interesting in that, like, problematization.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with that and say that's a word. That this
You're
that
an
this
English
script
major. You can do
writer, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
That the script writer was like, he hates it. He hates this ending. He's saying
Mhm.
like that those aliens are not his family. The
Mhm.
Muppets are his family, which
Mhm.
is,
Mhm.
it's really interesting because even the movie makers who did give us the ending we got on film said the same thing.
Yeah, well,
Gonzo
because
chose to stay.
Gonzo chooses to stay. Yeah.
Right. Gonzo chooses to stay.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating to me that this fella, Maziano, I think is his name, was so put out by
Mhm.
the ending
Mhm.
that was given because ultimately, in my mind, it's kinder. The one that we
Mhm.
got is kinder to Gonzo because
Oh,
he gets to
yeah.
choose,
Yeah.
but he knows where he's from. Because in the
Yeah.
beginning of this movie starts actually. Saw some critics say the best scene in the movie is the very first one, which is a dream sequence where Gonzo is running to catch the ark, and
Mhm.
Noah is
As
a
F. Murray
human and is
Abraham.
putting. Okay, I didn't know the actor's name, so good job. And he's putting Muppet animals onto his ark two by
Mhm.
two, and Gonzo's like, "Oh, I almost missed it," and Noah's like, "What are you?" And Gonzo's like, I don't know. Put me down as a whatever. And he says, what do you mean? What is your species? And Gonzo says, I guess there's only one of me. And Noah's response is, then you are doomed. He closes the ark door and then he opens it up again to give him an umbrella. Um, it's like my sense of humor. Anyway, so where was I going with this? Oh, and then so that's in the dream sequence. But then even in the real world, we see Gonzo just feeling deeply alone.
Mhm.
We see a bunch of photos on the mantle of the Muppets with their families, Kermit and his nephew,
Robin.
Robin?
Mhm.
I started to say Robin. I'm like, no, that's Batman's. No, yes, both are Robin.
Mhm.
So Kermit and Robin and Miss Piggy and the other pigs from Pigs in Space and Fozzie and his mom. And then there's this picture of Gonzo by himself on the beach, like
Mhm.
really zoomed out. And so there's this deep and profound loneliness
Mhm.
that we see in Gonzo, despite the fact that he's surrounded by this chosen family.
Mhm.
And in my mind, the ending we got, where the family's there and
Mhm.
they didn't abandon him,
Mhm.
right? They've been searching for him. He got lost. It was an accident. It sort of, it doesn't repair the damage, but it does feel comforting,
Mhm. Mhm.
so that he can choose to stay with his chosen family and
Mhm.
know that his quirks are not him being crazy.
Mhm.
It's just
Do
how he's
you
built.
it strikes me that this movie is a really good metaphor for transracial adoption.
Mm. Mhm.
Because I'm thinking about like you had a friend growing up who was adopted by a white family, and she was one of several kids who were adopted who were not, and not all of the adopted children were white. And the parents seemed like the very, very sweet,
Mhm.
good, well-meaning,
They were
and
mentioned. They were. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. But I remember
But they
you
also
telling,
didn't know how to. Yeah.
yeah, the lack of connection to one's origins when we live in a society that makes it very clear that our origins are, that skin differences are important in our
And
society.
hair and
Hair.
and everything. I think,
Yeah.
and it I think there's also a sense like they didn't know how, my friend's parents didn't know how to help her navigate
Mm-hmm.
the racism directed at her because they
Mm-hmm.
had never had to navigate it because they
Mm-hmm.
had white skin. And I think that's kind of so I think you're right in that Gonzo's chosen family also make fun of him
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for the things that we learn in this movie are normal in
Mm-hmm.
his culture of origin,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the getting blown out of a cannon is their most ceremonious of ceremonies,
Mm-hmm.
which is his, like, he does that on the, like, all the way back from the Muppet Show from the 70s when I was
Yeah.
a toddler on Dad's lap. Gonzo was being shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's not just that he's weird, that's a cultural thing that he didn't even realize was cultural.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's something powerful in that, uh, in that reality.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also the ending we have gives Gonzo agency. So he did not have agency in terms of getting lost from the rest of his family, in terms of
Right.
him being a whatever and the only one. Like that was not anything he had any control over. And if we had gotten the original ending, where the aliens simply admired him and were not his family, he still doesn't have the agency to be like, I choose to embrace this family, or I choose to embrace the family that has raised me. And that I feel like is really important. I mean, just, with the Kathy Griffin, the lack of agency there. But it is partially also because it is a kids movie. Like, it is, I think, important to show children the importance of having the ability to choose and the joy in choosing, even if it means giving up something else.
Yeah. I'm this almost 25-year-old movie, Muppet movie, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if I were able to, like, rewrite it or somehow tweak it,
Mm-hmm.
I wish it had been a little less either or, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they make it very clear, like the aliens are like, we gotta go. It's
Mm-hmm.
time to beat feet, the main
Mm-hmm.
guy says.
And
So
never
it
come
really
back.
does. That's the implication. That is definitely
Yeah.
the implication. But I would love it if it was like, we just bought a lake house on the moon. Like, we'll be
Yeah.
stopping down, like, every other year or so.
Yeah.
And we visit you.
Yeah.
So that he didn't,
Or
I don't
we'll
know.
send a spaceship so you can come to the reunions every year.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
so that it didn't have to be like all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's part of what doesn't feel good
Mm-hmm.
about the chosen family, of choosing
Yeah.
the chosen family in this case.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that Rizzo and Kermit love Gonzo. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that they do. And also,
They don't necessarily understand him.
they don't understand him, and they also kind of look down on him a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Something that this brings up for me is the fact that they say to him, like that he's like, you still don't believe me. I am reminded of, and this is a conversation you and I had about a friend of yours, who I'm bringing up a bunch of your friends for this episode, but you had gone like to Target or shopping with a friend of yours who was a Black woman, and there was someone following you, and you were in your early mid-20s, I think. I mean,
Yeah, I was in Chicago. The person thought we worked there. She thought Sheila was like, "Where do I find?" And we looked at each other and we looked at her and we're like, "We don't work here."
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was in my early mid-20s, and my friend was like really upset, and she was sure that it was racism because that woman, the person who asked us where to find stuff, who assumed we worked there, like, didn't believe that we would be friends as a white woman and a Black woman. And I didn't see it that way.
I remember you telling me
time.
that story at the time, how you were just like, no, I don't think that's it. And you, as you've gotten older and like kind of worked on anti-racism and kind of grown in expectation, or experience rather, you have been like, oh, I should listen to my friend.
Yeah.
She's had these experiences. She knows what
She
she's
was right.
talking about.
Yeah.
And she was right.
She's been Black her whole life. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what that I'm reminded of that story you told me with Kermit and Piggy and all of them not believing Gonzo, because it feels a little bit like how being shielded by being white and just the culture of white supremacy, which is partially to assume individual problems rather than systemic, is kind of recreated in that, like, you're obviously the weird one, Gonzo, so why would we believe you even with this preponderance of evidence in front of us? Which is also why this kind of reminds me as a like a parable of transracial adoption.
Yeah.
And I have heard every person in my life who I have seen who has been a part of a transracial adoption has been a deeply caring, deeply committed person who very much wants the best for their children. But that is not the case all the time. There are definitely those who adopt thinking that their child is not as good as they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, and then also I had a dear friend years ago who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but she had a little sister. She was Catholic. She was one of I think 6 children, and her parents adopted a Native American girl through the church. It was something that my friend, as a child at the time, I think she was like 12 or 13, and her little sister was like 3 or 4. And they ended up sharing a room, and there was a great deal of love there. But they were told, because this was like the 60s, like, just love them like your own, it'll be fine. And gave no paths for this little girl to know anything about her heritage, her culture, her family of origin. And
that was very much intentional.
Yes. And so my friend hadn't done anything wrong, but also knew how she had failed her sister when she had tried very hard to be the right person, to be her sister, to love her and care for her. And the parents, it's not that they did anything wrong either. They really were trying to help, and they were told
they did
by
the best they could with
agency,
what they had. Yeah,
this is what you're supposed to do. So, and I'm reminded a little bit of that, of like, but I really want to, do X, Y, and Z. Oh, but that's not our culture. Well, but so, this is Gonzo. I really want to be blown out of a cannon. Like, but why?
One of the things about the movie too, that as I'm looking at it with this lens on, at the end when he thinks he's going to go home, like go back to the other planet with the alien brethren, and he's saying goodbye, he says to Kermit, "You're the best friend a guy could have." And I was struck this time watching it that Kermit is Gonzo's best friend, but I don't think Gonzo's Kermit's best friend.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure Kermit's best friend is, but just in the way that he, like the Muppets are watching TV and Gonzo goes down to the studio and like comes on the show, and Rizzo's like, "Do you want to go down now or wait for the commercial break?" And Kermit's like, "Let's go now."
Yeah.
There's just this sense that he has this obligation to like clean up after Gonzo.
Well, and it's made very clear that he's the dad of a boarding house, because it's his job to clean up after everyone. And part of his exasperation is that like, oh, I got to clean up after Gonzo now too. And so, in some ways, I don't know that Kermit has a best friend because he is the de facto dad.
Yeah, that maybe
Um,
is true. Mm-hmm. Because he's also Fozzie's best friend.
Yeah.
And he's also, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and he's the straight man. I mean, so that's part of it is just how comedy works.
Yeah.
I do like the Rizzo. I feel like I'm not going to say he's a better friend to Gonzo, but the friendship between Rizzo and Gonzo feels very genuine in a way. And it's been a little while since last time I saw it, but the like Rizzo is, I mean, he's I've never actually seen, what's the movie that they named him after? It's like Taxi Driver or something. What?
I thought he was from Greece.
No. There's it's the I'm walking here guy.
Okay.
Anyway, so he and he was not introduced until Muppets Take Manhattan. It was the first time we met Rizzo. Because there's a character named Rizzo Ratso, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is like very genuine and gives all that he's capable of giving.
Yeah.
In a very generous way.
And he has a conscience, right? Mm-hmm. So like from the beginning, Pepe, who this is his first movie. He appeared on a TV show before this, but this is his first movie where Rizzo says he listens to voices and does what they say, and then Pepe has an idea, and then through the fan they say, "If you build it, we will come." And Gonzo's like, "What? Build what? A jacuzzi, okay?" Anyway, Rizzo's like, "We have to tell him, right?" And so they're going to tell him, and Pepe's going to tell him. And then Gonzo like rushes past them, and Pepe turns to Rizzo and goes, "You should have told him." And Rizzo's like, "I said you, I meant you." So Rizzo's like, he has a conscience. Though at the same time, because actually even in the jacuzzi, when Rizzo sees how like excited Gonzo is for the alien brethren that Rizzo knows aren't coming because it was him and Pepe, he says, "We have to tell him." That's when Pepe says the bad donkey line. So like Rizzo has much more of a conscience when it comes to Gonzo than Pepe does, for instance. He goes after him with the government. He sees there's something not okay with these men in black who come to get Gonzo and say they're from the Alien Protection Agency. So he goes with him, and then in fact when he escapes Shawshank style from the medical research and all the rats are going like toward the exit, he goes the other way, and they say, "Where are you going?" "This is the way out." And he says, "I gotta go help my friend." Right. And Bubba's like, "That kid's got moxie." And one of the rats is like, "Moxie? What is moxie?" I just love so many quotable lines from this movie.
So one of the things I love, and I feel like this is also a good like parallel with Gonzo and his alien brothers, is so the Bubba and the other lab rats end up coming, like they turn around and like, "Okay, we're gonna follow Rizzo. He's our brother, and he's helping his friend who's his brother, so we're gonna help him." And I feel like there's kind of a parallel there as well, as like, there's found family, there's born family, and then there's the fact that in either case you can you don't leave anyone behind.
Yeah, except for Bunsen and Beaker, who got left behind at a convenience store
because they were getting snacks.
Okay, from now on, we don't leave anybody behind. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and there's and something about too the like the shared trauma, the shared experience with the other lab rats that that was part of what I think had the other rats go after, because they had been through a lot together in the montage of the research. There's mazes and wind tunnels,
force machines, and
and then there's like the rat poison and cheese, but like he gets punched if he goes for the cheese. It's just so silly.
It is so silly. Yeah, it's a joy of a movie, and it's interesting to like kind of dig into this deeper stuff with it, because it is there, and some of it is the assumptions that we make. So you were mentioning the like the Bechdel test. I can remember as a kid being a little bit bothered by the fact that Piggy was the only girl Muppet, because I
Yep.
wasn't sure what Janice was supposed to be.
Right.
Like I thought, because the eyelashes and the long hair, I'm like, I think she's supposed to be a girl, but I can't tell.
Right.
And I remember being bothered by that. And
Well, because she's clearly not a character we're meant to want to emulate.
yeah, yeah. So, and Miss Piggy is phenomenal. I love Miss Piggy, but I also, there are aspects to her personality because she's the only one that are problematic because that's the only female characterization we get.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, in this movie, she's like, the first time we see her is like her figuring out what to wear, and she's like throwing, it makes her look very vain. And then, I mean, she makes a joke of it, but when she comes to tell the news that she has gotten tortured the information out of one of the black men in black that Gonzo's been kidnapped by a government agency, and she's like comes in to tell the news, and she's like bursting with excitement. I've got great news, everyone, and Kermit's like, how is that great news? And she's like, because I got the story. And at one point earlier than that, like when she says this is wonderful news, she breaks the fourth wall and she looks at the camera and says, you think Ted Koppel never gets excited? Like, and so the movie makers like acknowledge it and try to like normalize it a little bit, but you're right. She's the only female Muppet. And so she's carrying too much weight, too much weight.
Like, I will say, and I feel like this was in 1999 that like we got to update some things, because older Muppet movies, it was all about her trying to get Kermit. That's what and so this like, all right, let's give her a career.
Right. That's right.
1990s feminism.
Because she, and in fact, in this one, there's only one small reference to the fact that she has the hots for Kermit, which is when they're on the bus at one point, she says, I love it when you take charge. But it's like a throwaway. It's not actually a part of the story. It's not a part of the plot. Whereas you're right. In previous movies, that was her sole plot line.
So I appreciate that, and I love the why you think Ted Koppel doesn't get excited. I love that line. So but at the same time, like, gosh, like they brought us Pepe, who is just a perfect character, and so quotable.
So quotable.
It might be filled with chocolate, okay? So I would love to see any of the white men who are taking over Muppets to have some female, preferably non-white female writers in the room to help create some Muppets.
I mean, it feels like it wouldn't have even been that. I mean, they introduced all those new rats for medical research. Like a couple of them could have been girl rats.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
and then all of the female actors who are in it. So we've got Kathy Griffin, we've got Andie MacDowell playing Shelley Snipes. We've got what's her name, who was in Dawson's Creek, Katie
Holmes.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah. And that was stunt casting. That was like, hey, it's Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they even say they reference Dawson, and that's another moment they break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Where Katie Holmes says, I wish Dawson were here. This is like one of those things that I've in his sci-fi movies. And then Pepe, or the other guy, I can't think of the guy, the purple Muppet's name, they say, but this is a Muppet movie. It's much more realistic and romantic, okay?
Yes.
Pepe says that.
And so,
but this is a Muppet movie.
So all the female characters who are played by actresses
Humans.
humans are like objectified. So Kathy Griffin and Katie Holmes kind of are in that, and romantical, and like if there were other female actors like humans play, it would not be a big deal.
Right.
Kathy Griffin's always going to be that bit's always going to be gross, and then Shelley Snipes is not about, like, it's not objectification, but it is a very negative view of women.
Yeah. There's like one or two, just they don't have any lines, but like in the bit where the Muppets are stacked too high and wearing lab coats to try
doctor,
find Gonzo. Doctor. They're talking. It's a woman in a lab coat who has stepped out of a door when they're like, oh, doctor, just a couple of doctors in the hallway and these tiny little heads sticking out of the lab coat. It's such classic. It's like that gag has been used so many times, and yet it's still funny.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
okay. And some in the Muppet universe, like, I guess it's just normal. Like, I mean, Banjo is a bear, and he's a bear. Just has a job as a receptionist. So
that's one of the things that is so charming about the Muppet universe, is that Muppets are just part of the world that you live in. You know, it's and that's I don't know, like, how common that is. I mean, or was, prior to Jim Henson doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we see it in animated stuff a lot.
Yeah,
but that may be derivative. Because
Henson. And I'm wondering if it's because, like, coming from ventriloquism.
Yeah, maybe.
So
that's a good point.
But yeah, it's something that I love about the Muppets, is that it's just accepted.
Yep. So before we wrap up, because we've been talking for a long minute, the one other thing that I want to name, a reason that I love this movie, is the soundtrack. It's all like 1970s funk and rhythm and blues, and it's just awesome.
It's so good.
You just like, and like the there's when Gonzo's on the lawnmower. Excuse me. There's a scene where he's like mowing a message in the lawn, because that's what the Cosmic Fish told him to do. But then later, when he drives it again, the same song comes back, and it's just fantastic. Like, I want to listen to that music all the time. You can't, and like there's the big dance. It's like there's this big dance scene in the beginning.
Well, everyone's getting ready in the morning. Yep.
While they're getting ready, and they're like, bathing and whatever, like waiting in line for the one bathroom apparently in this boarding house. And like Kermit just says it really well, like, way to get down with your bad selves, everybody.
I mean, if only all of our mornings could start that way.
For real, I actually genuinely believe my life would be better if I could just start every morning with Brick House.
Oh, she's mighty, mighty.
Yeah.
It is a unique film. I mean, like, it's a Muppet movie, so that's part of it, and like Muppet movies are always very quotable. But I feel like the soundtrack, this is before Hollywood. I might be wrong, but I feel like there's a lot right now of movies using nostalgia soundtracks very intentionally, in a way that is either ironic or, so I'm thinking of like first Guardians of the Galaxy, when Star-Lord is kicking aliens around to the sound of, I can't remember what that song's called, but and it's just he's dancing around and it doesn't make sense. So there is this like a big push, I feel like, in a lot of movies, and it's not just that. So another thing that you see happen is they'll take a song from the 80s or 90s and like slow it down, which they did with the recent Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. They took a Nirvana song to use that way, and don't feel like I remember seeing this quite like it prior to Muppets in Space, or Muppets from Space. And I may be wrong. I may be misremembering.
I think maybe it's just that now it's music that you grew up with, and so it's
true.
actually
so it hits
aimed
different.
at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're noticing it differently. Like, I have a feeling there was music that was aimed at boomers.
Yeah. But
when we were younger.
But did they do it in ironic ways, in ways that, like, unexpected ways? That's kind of what I'm feeling like, because I know, like, Stand By Me. One of the things Dad loved about it was the soundtrack, and it was the soundtrack of his childhood because it was a period piece. But I'm trying to think of, like, if there were movies that used a soundtrack that didn't, quote unquote, fit, which is what I feel like happens now a lot.
I don't know.
So, listeners, please let us know if you can think of any movies prior to 99 that did this. We would love to know.
Yeah. All right. So, quick synthesis.
Yes.
Muppets from Space. Underrated movie.
Underrated gem.
Some problematic gender stuff, but overall a really sweet and charming story about chosen family. And with a great soundtrack and some very quotable lines.
Oh my goodness.
So
quotable.
do you know, Em, what stupid shit you're gonna share deep thoughts with?
So next time I'm going to share with you some deep thoughts about The Princess Bride.
Ooh, I can't wait.
So I have many thoughts about The Princess Bride.
Yeah. We are gonna have fun storming that castle.
Oh yes.
All right. Well, I will look forward to seeing you then. And do we have a thing? Do we have a timeline? So, come overthink it with us.
Yeah, come overthink it with us.
Thanks for listening. Our theme music is Professor Umlaut by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Find full music credits in the show notes. Deep Thoughts is a labor of love, but that doesn't make it free to produce. You can help keep us overthinking. Support us through our Patreon with a link in the show notes. Leave a positive review so others can find us. And share the show with your people. Until next time, remember, pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head?